Good morning, good afternoon, good middle of the night. This is Unstoppable on GWTV from the 5th floor of the SMPA building here at GW. Thanks for tuning in to Channel 61. We're here to talk sports on Channel 61 here with Andrew Hanks and Austin, back from a semester in Europe. Hopefully we can talk soccer with Austin now at some point, but we're happy to have him back. And let's get rolling. We've got a lot of topics to go through today: NFL, GW basketball, NHL. We hope you stick around for the entire ride. First, covering the NFL playoffs. It's playoff season. Should all 4 division winners in each conference, has been a huge debate with the Seattle Seahawks, get a home playoff game?
I still think they should. They should keep it the way it is. I really think it's a problem if they do switch it. All the West teams, it's going to take them a long hump for someone to get a home game. And that's no coverage in both those, possibly in both those divisions out West, if the Saints got the home field advantage over the Seahawks. So I think it would be a little hit to the fans doing that way. We already have 2 teams having the bye, and I think it's a good thing for coverage, for fans to get to see their team.
So it keeps it national, then, is what you're saying?
Yeah, it keeps it national.
I don't think it's the NFL's job to appease the fans of these places out west.
Of their sport?
No, listen, they get 8 games a season. They put them all on TV.
I don't think they like it.
It comes down to wins. And you had the Jets, you had the Ravens, you had the Saints, all with more wins than the team that they had to go on the road to go play. And I think that's ridiculous. The competitive nature of the sport, winning more games should result in advantages in the playoffs. And as you look and say, towards the season goes on, a lot of team players get rested towards the end of the season. This will keep it going. You have to always jockey for position. You wouldn't just lock up your spot, and hope to just play the wild card team, get your home game. Now you have to play without the rest of the season, and it's more exciting, and that's what the NFL really wants.
I understand what you're saying. That is one, that's the side of the argument. You want the best teams, having home field advantage as advantage to them, but I do feel like in these arguments, I just personally always feel like it's a side that the organization deserves to do something more towards the fans. It should always be the fans
But
first.
They should spend more money and win more games, because that's what it comes down to. When it comes down to the meat and potatoes of it, if you want to have a home game, you should have to win more games, and that should be what your players
No team is not trying to win games. It's not going.
You should be
that's
rewarded for not winning more games.
But shouldn't there be a certain value to winning your division? Like, the only teams that have the exact same schedule you in a given season are the people in your division. Shouldn't there be a value?
And you should get a playoff spot for winning your division. But if your division
you have a
terrible,
worse record, then you should
exactly.
have a road playoff.
It's still the best out of those teams. You're playing them 2 times a year. All the teams in your division. If they're going to do that, then there's no point. What's the point in divisions?
Okay.
Really.
Then
the teams could expand and have more interleague games and all different situations.
Okay. I guess we'll make some predictions then heading into this week. We mentioned that there were some upsets in week 1.
Marshawn Lynch.
In week 1 of the NFL playoffs. What are we expecting in terms of upsets coming up in this weekend's set of games?
Well, just basically on the point spread, it's not even really that much of an upset, but I'd say the Ravens over the Steelers. These teams have played 8 times in the last 3 years. They know each other like the back of their hand. Their points per game are identical over those last 8 games. I know you have Palomalu and Harrison on one side, and you got Suggs and Reed and Lewis on the other. These teams know each other so well, it's going to be a slugfest. And that at the end of the game it's going to come down to a turnover or a field goal.
And what tells you the Steelers are going to blow it there? The Steelers are going to commit that turnover? Or?
Because, I think that Roethlisberger is prone to, throwing the costly interception at the end. He scrambles a lot. He likes to be mobile, but once in a while, especially with that terrible offensive line, if Suggs comes around the corner and just nails him, it makes the ball go loose.
Like Palomalu at the end of that second regular season game.
Exactly.
That's going to be a great game, but I don't think it's going to be the upset. Going into this game with the Falcons having home field advantage, I think Green Bay is really an underdog in here. Even though they play well, everyone has the Packers sides as being a good team. But going up against a team that's lost 2 games in their home with Matty Ice, ice in his veins, he's going to have a great playoff game.
Exactly. That's why it'd be the biggest upset, but that's why it's not going to happen, because Matt Ryan has thrown 15 touchdowns and 3 interceptions at home this year.
The Packers defense.
So there's no way the Packers win that game?
They could win that game, but I think that everybody has just understated how good the Falcons really are at home.
Yeah, but the Packers defense, with how well they're playing right now, I think they're going to get pressure on him. Even though he's a great quarterback, I think you're looking at eliminating their ability to score lots of points on offense is going to bring it down for Aaron Rodgers to just score more points.
A contentious start to Unstoppable today. It's a tough first segment to award. I'm going to give it over to Austin. I think you make the correct point of, I think it'd be a fair compromise, I guess you would have to say at this point, to say, yeah, you should get a playoff berth, but you shouldn't get an automatic home game. I think that's a good side to take there, and I agree with you. I think you made a good case for it. I think the Ravens do have a great shot of winning that game. I think the Packers, I doubt Matty Ice might show up totally in the playoffs just because he's still a young guy, but Flacco's already proven himself in the playoffs, and he's already got a good record away from home in the playoffs. So the first segment goes to Austin. Moving on to GW basketball, it's been a good week so far for GW basketball. Their latest win, kind of sparking some interest on campus now that students are back from winter break. Based on this current win streak they're on and their recent performance, is GW going anywhere in the Atlantic 10 this year?
I see GW making great strides in the A10, and right now they're tied, obviously, at 3-0 at the top of the A10, which it's still very early, but that's a big accomplishment for GW considering where they have come from and where they are now. And you look at the team, and the key is still Tony Taylor. And in their wins, he's averaging 16.7 points, and their losses only 9.5. And the team has greatly improved. They have actual shooters now that are hitting their wide open shots. You got inside presence. And I think
Tim Johnson's decided he can shoot a jumper now.
I think that this team
in one game.
Yeah.
If you look at a couple years back when they were at the bottom of the A10, now they have 3 wins already. They could still beat up. Our next game against Richmond at Richmond will really be a huge test. They don't have to win it, but if they're very competitive, I would not be afraid to go ahead and say they'll be a top 5 A10 team.
I don't know about top 5. This year, they have gotten lucky is what I want to say, because the A10, how it's shifted with a lot of teams.
Down right
a
now.
lot of the teams are, besides the top teams, are going to be there, Temple and Richmond. Charlotte lost Shamari Spears. SLU has their 2 players dismissed. So the GW has a lot of wins, or has a few more wins they can get out of the A10. So I do say they are a contender around the middle of the pack, not up till 5th, I don't think. But they're going to have a better season than everyone expected them, especially coming in without Lassonde Croma.
I was going to say, at this point, they're doing it with Lassonde Croma and Nate Grant.
The only thing to that point is every team has problems. GW a couple years ago with Hollis, you had problems with Coach Hobbs. I'm sure other people were saying, I'm glad GW has that problem. Every team's got problems, and but the thing is, GW is playing like a team right now. And they have a solid rotation, and they have, a backcourt presence that they haven't really had as strong in the last couple of years. And it's showing, especially in the ability to bring the ball up and really move the offense around.
I think the only thing we have to remember here also is that so far the best wins have come at home. The win over Nevada was a good.
But these are games that we were losing last year, the year before.
I mean, the problem is we're still losing road games we should be winning, and that's something we need to, that has to be fixed.
Yeah, but they do have an impressive win at OSU this year.
Yeah, that's right.
Listen, they have a great recruit coming in next year. You get Croma back.
I really hope he stays committed.
Yeah, you got Taylor for one more year.
He's coming.
You got Taylor for one more year. I really think that this team is going to look to the future and say that, especially Coach Hobbs, look at his team and say to himself, I have a good group of players in front of me, and I'm going to develop these group of players for the future, for next year, and for
what's
down the road.
Good about the team, though, also is other guys getting experience. With Lassonde out, he would have been starting every game. GW has a lot of depth, too, compared to other teams in the A10.
We sub every 30 seconds.
Yeah, you look at Fordham, and they were tired the whole second half because besides their starting 5 and Gaston and Butler, they don't really have much. And a lot of other teams don't have these guys who come in off the bench like we do, where we have Tim coming in and getting 7 points in a row, Bynes coming in for Taylor and running the offense, or even Warren had 6 rebounds, 11 minutes. He
was a spark plug there for a little bit.
Yeah, he was.
I guess we've covered the good parts of GW basketball. What really has to be improved if the season's going to continue to be good and the program's going to continue to grow?
I mean, Bynes is definitely an integral part of this team this year. He's playing, top minutes, especially at the Fordham game. Tony Taylor's actually sick most of the game, so a lot of times Bynes came in, and Hobbs wants him running offense, wants him and Tony in at the same time. A lot of Tony playing, off ball, and Bynes really needs to be a little bit more consistent. He's been playing well, and that's one of the reasons for them going up, but he needs to be more consistent and they need to stop making bonehead
You hit it
plays.
It's a good thing
You hit
we've
it
got
right on
Bynes' jersey right
You
behind
hit,
us.
it, you
here
hit it
on
right on the
Unstoppable
head.
Set.
Every college basketball coach wants nothing more than consistency out of their players, out of their top performers. And Taylor continues to play well. Katuka and the Serb, we'll call him. I really think that this team could continue to improve. It's based, working hard, gaining chemistry, and luckily, college basketball is the kind of thing where freshmen can come in and really impact the program quickly, and that's something that GW is
GW
looking
last
for.
couple of years, there's been a lot of good impact
You
freshman
can see
players.
how much Nemanja has grown over the last game,
You
how
can
well
already.
he played
Yep.
defensively
Yep. He's
compared
already
to
getting
his
better.
beginning of the season.
Definitely. I would agree that right now things are a little upside down in the A10. I'd say that there's some things that are still going to be ironed out at the end of the long conference schedule. But I think you make the correct point that we'll have to see how it shakes out. I think the Richmond game is going to be an important game in deciding just to be competitive, whether or not we can actually hold our own against teams. I mean, we had a lot of games like that last year where we competitive and lost. Hopefully, get some competitive games and win. Most improved, I think you make a great point that Brian Bynes has to step up and continue to be a consistent player. I think that's a really good find. I mean, there's a lot of flaws in this team. I think that's a good one to point out. Consistency. I mean, that seems like it's always a problem for GW. And like I said, I think that goes to the road problems as well. Is
Right.
that they can't get up for the road games. I'm going to give the second segment to Andrew. And we're going to move on to the NHL, a topic we probably don't talk about enough about here on Unstoppable. But the NHL has a new All-Star team selecting format that they're trying out this year, kind of a revolutionary concept in the All-Star game scene. What do you think about it, Austin?
I absolutely love it. All right, hockey is not a sport that has remained in the mainstream ever since the lockout, ever since it left ESPN, and this is a great way for Gary Bettman to catch people's attention. I know for one thing I'll be watching this. For anybody who hasn't, just a brief summary, fans only choose 6 players, the league picks the rest, and then you go to the best system I've ever heard of a schoolyard pick'em, where 2 captains, let's just for argument's sake say Crosby and Ovechkin, they're
The
powerful
NHL's
names.
Golden Boys.
Sure.
Yeah.
Looking at their buddies. I got Sedin. All right, I got Sedin.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you're gonna have teammates playing teammates. You're gonna have, let's say there's Crosby doesn't want to pick anybody on the Capitals. What if they're all of a sudden these things carry over into the
Rivalries,
playoffs
yeah.
where just bad blood comes between 2 people.
I mean,
It turns from an all-star
Wouldn't it
game
suck to
into
get
a
picked
personal
last?
thing.
Wouldn't it suck
Oh,
to
it's sucking.
You be that kid again? You're a professional athlete.
I mean, the problem is you said at the beginning the fans only pick 6 people for this game. All right, NHL picks a rest, and a lot of the problems with this is that there are a lot of undeserving people getting picked. A lot of times, a lot of teams.
just because the NHL has an interest in certain people getting picked.
Definitely. Yeah. With people having down seasons getting picked. Ilya Kovalchuk has had a terrible season, and the Devils look terrible. And when the top teams in the
They're
NFL,
awful.
who are the top team in the NFL, the Flyers, have 1 pick.
How is that any
going
different
there.
than the NBA letting Allen Iverson get a starting position last year?
Alonzo Mourning, even the years he was injured.
Yeah,
I know it's
Yao
the thing is,
Ming.
though,
Yao
You usually have there's usually the argument of the fans always pick the superstars, don't really focus on it. But this, I felt like they switched it and went the other way. All the superstars and the NHL are picking these guys just for their names, and I don't think it's deserving for the players' behalf and a lot of the time.
In most sports anyway, you're going to have your couple guys picked by the fans, and the teams are picking, and the league is picking the rest of the people with influence. Especially in baseball, where one person gets picked from every team, there's a lot of bureaucracy in all of it. So to say that's
you have more
ruining it,
fans.
it's an
input in
incredible
baseball,
idea. We love in this country fantasy sports, and it is a fantasy sport to watch them go and pick players one after another. That's incredibly interesting to see the dynamic of who would.
Yeah, what do
pick
you think
who.
of that part of it?
I think it is interesting, and like you said, it will bring some people will probably see it. But the main argument I have with it is that it does create situations of favoritism. It does create situations
That's
of players who
awesome.
are undeserving.
Are
And
those
I know
dynamic-
you're saying through this that the All-Star game is meaningless, which it pretty much is. In most sports.
Exactly. That's
besides
why you should make it
baseball.
as fun as possible.
But there are players who do worry or who do want to see that their accomplishments on the ice are getting deserved.
We're so not used to this because hockey, and we never really grew up playing hockey. We grew up playing basketball, and I know everyone. It's big when you're the last guy picked. You never want to be the last guy picked, and it's really
That's
fun.
drama we're gonna get to see.
Oh
I
yeah,
guess,
and it's
I
fun.
grew up playing hockey actually.
Listen,
Street hockey
it would
more
be
than
just as
pickup
cool.
basketball.
It'd be just as
Yes.
cool in football if you had Peyton Manning going and picking off guys like Larry Fitzgerald. For the Pro Bowl, just picking guys that he wishes
That'd
he
be
could throw to
interesting.
one day. That's the interesting part of it. It's these guys playing teammates against teammates, people who would never have a chance to play with one another, now being put together on a team. And also, they brought in 10 rookies. They're incorporating the rookies into this game too.
Generation
They
Adidas.
pick who does the skills competition, which will somebody tell the NBA to do that? Who should do the dunk contest? Not just 4 guys who just don't care about getting injured. 7-foot guys now are the only ones that want to do the dunk contest.
Yep.
So I think that too.
And Nate Robinson.
Up to about a month ago in the NHL, Sergei Bobrovsky, the rookie goalie for the Flyers, has had an outstanding season. He already has 15, 16 wins. He was not selected by the rookie committee.
There's always
and
going to
he's
be
always-
all-star snubs in any sport ever.
Speaking
I
of
know
players
they're
who
always
have,
going to, but this seems
yeah,
to have created.
let's look at something like
so many
Ovechkin. So Alex Ovechkin's having a terrible season by his standards. Is that good or bad for this All-Star game and good or bad for the NHL that he still's there and he's still like?
You never want your marquee players to be performing poorly, even if the team is winning, because you need a face, and you need highlights, and you have some crazy Ovechkin highlights.
I think Ovechkin is already so established in the NHL as a superstar. And
That you're
already
okay with him being there
that-
despite his season and those kinds of things?
No, I'm not. I understand how they're doing because he's one of the 2 marquee top players in the league. But is he deserving? Maybe not over some other guys in the league who have had more goals, have higher points.
Austin, I came into this not entirely, into the idea, but now you've got me actually interested to see it. So I'm going to give you that segment. I don't know. It seems fascinating. I'm curious to see the last guy picked. Nobody's going to want to be that guy. And I'm curious to see the drama you insinuated with guys picking guys they want to play with someday. So that's something you could see too. Which means 3 years ago, I guess LeBron, Wade, Bosch would have been picking each other
Exactly.
in an NBA All-Star game. Too soon. Let's see. Moving back to football, but this one we're talking college and NFL combined because we're talking about coaching. There's been a lot of off-season moves, or it seems like or not off-season, but coaching moves at this point at the end of the season. Are we, now that we're pretty much done with this coach moving cycle, what was the best hiring and or firing, Andrew?
Well, one of the firing, my favorite is Shannon out of Miami. Just
That was a
the
rough
way
season.
that was. I mean, not just this season, the last season.
Yeah.
It seems consistently they're starting in the last few years. The U was coming back, and they were ranked top 25. Preseason first game, and they just go downhill all season. And it's, I'm sure it's partly
The quarterback's
his
fault.
The Ja'Cory Harris they have to
Yeah.
get rid of.
Yeah.
But they went in. They hired Golden from Temple, who is an upstart guy, and I think he's going to bring energy to this team. He's a winner. He's created a winning persona at Temple where he taught before, and I like that pick by them.
I agree with you that it's important to get a guy who has taken basically nothing and turned it into something. I have 2 people. I have Randy Edsel, who was Connecticut, who's going to Maryland. And I say that because Connecticut was not even a 1A school when he got there, and brought them all the way to a BCS Bowl, which in a week, very, very weak Big East. We'll put a giant asterisk next to it. But
Against a 9th ranked team.
Yeah,
Sure.
and they weren't even ranked.
But
Stupid.
he still did a very impressive job over his tenure there. Also, Will Muschamp going from Texas to Florida, a big name hire in a big name school, a guy who was the heir apparent to Mac Brown.
I say the guy that turned down the Texas job is basically what he did.
And he knows the recruiting, and he knows the way to do it. And he knows how to walk into an athlete's house and tell him exactly what he wants to hear. They also brought in Charlie Weiss, a great, I think Charlie Weiss was never designed to be a head coach, a great coordinator.
Or an offensive coordinator.
It's going to be great for this
Wade
team.
Phillips should be a defensive coordinator.
Brantley is going to really improve from this. You saw how Castle played extremely well for the Chiefs this year. So I think that bringing in another big name for the program is what Florida needed to revive it, because I think all along they were kind of not great with Meyer there. He walked out on them once. It wasn't a great situation, and now you have the guy who's a young guy who could be there for the next decade.
I think a lot of people are generally concerned about the post-Tebow era at Florida.
I also want to note Michigan finally getting rid of Rodriguez and realizing that this is not going right. I'm sure he had problems with the administration there. They brought in a guy with a lot of upside from San Diego State who's turned that team into a bowl-winning team, but there's always that problem with, Rodriguez came from having a winning record. And see what happened. But I like that they got rid of him and they're trying.
And Brady Hoke is the good idea there. Is that?
I think that
it's more of they needed a change and they're doing this change. And if this doesn't work, they still got to find it.
I'm interested to see how
keep these
Denard
guys
Robinson,
locked
who is
down.
their best player, fits into a new system.
I think Robinson is what he is. He's a running quarterback. A lot of Rich Rodriguez loves running quarterbacks, so we're gonna have to see how that transition goes. I think I'm not big on the Hoke bringing in of Hoke. I'm sorry because.
They tried to get Harbaugh. They tried to get Harbaugh.
Like I said, I think it's more about they need to change what is going on in that program. It's clearly not going well. It clearly hasn't worked. Every year they've had such an upside.
They need to change.
I know we've heard this from many analysts before, but Notre Dame, Michigan, these schools are not, you're not just going to get players anymore. There's the Boise States out there. There's so many more competitive schools. So you need coaches with experience in recruiting, and it's more than just the X's and the O's. That's why I think Brian Kelly, it's going to take him a little bit of time in Notre Dame to.
But it was never going anywhere with Rodriguez.
I absolutely
and they
agree.
needed to cut that. And
any coach that
more than Hoke, they needed to get a new system going. They just need
any coach has controversy the second he walks in the door. Is not going to lead your football team because players don't want to play. There's so many schools and so much exposure out there. Any player can be found, and Michigan is a good program, but
going back to Edsel, what about the way in which that was done? Where he right after that BCS bowl game, he didn't even fly back with his team, flew straight to Maryland to take the coaching job.
Well, on the other side of that coin, how many times have you seen coaches not coach their teams in the bowls and leave before the bowl even happened?
I mean,
I think that's far worse. I think his team knew.
I
think his team knew whether they played hard or not. I'm sure the AD knew. But I don't think it's as bad as a coach leaving before his team is even.
I'll buy that. Yeah, I mean, I was kind of outraged. I was like, just fly home with your team first.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't understand why these
give me a
coaches.
break. Yeah.
You figured they'd be in. They'd have the passion.
That's a good point. A lot of guys skip out on the bowls. Let's see. That's a tough one to say. I mean, firing Rich Rodriguez for firing Rich Rodriguez's sake was an interesting argument to have there. I do agree Randy Shannon had to go, even though I put a lot of the fault on Ja'Cory Harris for the problems at the U. I don't think Randy Edsel will work out too well at Maryland. The strange part about Maryland is what they had was actually working pretty well, and they insisted on getting rid of it, and I just thought that was strange.
Tom Cable.
Yeah, where's he going to end up? But I think the Randy Shannon case is an interesting one. I think the Florida one. I think the jury's still out there because I'm not a believer in Brantley, so I think it'll take them a little bit to turn that around. Maybe a new quarterback. I'm going to give that segment to Andrew, creating a decisive fifth segment here on Unstoppable. This special edition with Austin back with us. There's been a lot of disappointing DC storylines in terms of DC sports in the last couple of years. You could look at things like Steven Strasburg when he came out. It was great, and then he got injured. Things like that. What's been the most disappointing, DC story, the most disappointing DC athlete to this point, Austin?
It has to be Donovan McNabb, because when you go and trade out for a quarterback who has multiple Pro Bowls, who's been to the Super Bowl, who's been to many NFC Championship games, and you go within your own division, trade a second-round pick for him, make him your franchise quarterback, give him $87 million extension during the season.
That was so strange. They were thinking about benching him.
And then you bench him for Rex Grossman.
Sexy Rexy.
Are you kidding me?
Sexy Rexy.
It's embarrassing.
Sexy Rexy played better than Donovan McNabb
14 touchdowns, 14 touchdowns, 15 interceptions. The team was never really. They were always around him, but the system didn't work. The running game didn't work. It wasn't a Mike Shanahan type deal really going on, and people were very excited to see Donovan McNabb walking through and putting on a Washington Redskins uniform. They've seen him kill him so many times.
It seemed like a good idea at the time.
Well, I mean, to everyone except the people who are Eagles fans
in Philly.
Because you got to think of. What if he's this Pro Bowler? Why did they get rid of him? He's the franchise player for the last 11 years. Why is he leaving?
And we talk about practice.
Why are they not signing? Donovan McNabb, came in with a lot of hype, but he threw those passes in the ground so many times, overthrew his person. He has a great arm, but he's just not accurate anymore. But going with the Redskins, I mean a lot. I think on Mike Shanahan. He had the hype he had coming into as going to rebuild this franchise. Think about that.
And the situation,
the situation, how he handled everything with Hainsworth. Although Hainsworth, You know,
He's Hainsworth. He
it's
goes to
Hainsworth,
McFadden's the night he's cut. That was hilarious.
But why? How does this great coach coming in and all these situations with Hainsworth benching Donovan McNabb? How does it happen? And the team that was supposed to do well, go 500 in this division, just go nowhere, absolutely into the ground.
I agree with what you're saying, but I still think it's a little bit more on the players. I think Hainsworth was highly unmotivated.
Yes.
That contract. If you want to go even higher, go Daniel Snyder. That guy's been destroying the franchise for years. I'm going to go a little bit off the radar a little bit. And I think John Wall has been an incredible disappointment, just because even though he's been injured, and I know that it's nagging and that's terrible to have shoulders and knee problems when you're 20 years old, even when he's on the floor, he's not making Chris Paul. He's not making the team Chris Paul better.
Not to mention wrist and elbow
or
problems.
or even Darren Williams better. Or he's not playing with top flight talent, but he has not been impressive to where I thought he would be.
I think he's been impressive. I mean, he has his off games, and he's still a rookie.
He's a rookie. And he was
you just said Chris Paul. That's one of the top point guards, in the league. You can't just have expecting.
Okay, but Derrick Rose, I think, was more consistent in his rookie year than John Wall has been.
Okay,
yeah,
but he wasn't hampered by injuries
I don't know if Derrick Rose, coming out of college, was just as hyped up, and he has proven to be, a better player than John Wall so far. But it's just his rookie season. Going in also off another topic, DC sports, DC United this year, the MLS soccer team, was extremely disappointing. You thought they would turn around in the off season, and it was also a coaching problem with Kurt Adolfo was one of the main keys there, and that's another, along with the Redskins, probably the most disappointing DC teams.
What about getting rid of Adam Dunn? When and spending getting rid of Adam Dunn and then overpaying Jason Worth right after that.
Well, listen, you're overpaying Jason Worth because you're a bad team and you need to pay. But Adam LaRoche had 100 RBIs last year and he had 19 home runs. Will he do it again? Who knows? But Adam Dunn.
Not for the Nats.
Listen, I went to many Nationals games last year, and I saw Adam Dunn continuously strike out, and I think Adam LaRoche will strike out in the same situations. I don't think it's a terrible decision. I think they're still a very young team. They're 2-3 years away until Harper comes up, and Strasburg's dominant, and you have Zimmerman and Espinoza and all these guys, and Howard. But I don't think that getting rid of Dunn was. They got draft picks. They're a bad team.
It's been a good episode of Unstoppable today. It's gonna be a tough one for me to decide. I think Austin, you take it though with Donovan McNabb. You see the beginning of the season, you saw all of the marketing around it was Donovan McNabb. I think Mike Shanahan was an interesting point because there was also a lot of hype coming into that, but I think it was all Donovan McNabb, and the people in Washington thought they'd just stolen from the Eagles, and the Eagles were actually
they just stole Jason Worth from the Phillies.
Exactly, the Eagles are like, actually, you can have him, and I think the Phillies will be just fine with that Worth. So I think that one will have to go to Austin for Donovan McNabb. And Austin is Unstoppable today, here on Unstoppable, dethroning Andrew at least for this week. Wrapping it up for this week on Rapid Fire, the best basketball rivalry in the college or NBA.
Celtics-Lakers, last few years.
It's been good.
Yeah,
it's been good.
Duke Carolina. Why? Celtics Lakers have been that same way forever, just because they're usually the two best teams.
I mean, but UNC's had a couple. past couple seasons.
UNC was
how about
UNC got
you can go. You can do. There's even better ones like Dallas San Antonio was a much better rivalry than we give it credit for. Yeah, there's so many rivalries out there in the NBA, and that's
Kings Lakers. Kings Lakers.
Maybe
Let's go back to 2002.
Those Clippers too.
You know
Clippers,
what? I'm actually excited about the Clippers right now.
Clippers Heat now.
Yeah, that was interesting. Let's see. A quick sports topic. What would you rather watch? Would you rather sit at home and watch like a Champions League game, a good European game, or would you rather go to an MLS game?
Would you rather go to a minor league baseball game or watch an extremely competitive baseball game on television with two teams that are actually good and actually can play?
And Andrew.
It's about the experience for me. If I have an option to go to the sport and see it live, it's more than just watching soccer.
Especially soccer.
I might not be the biggest soccer fan, so that might be biasing me. That I'd rather have the experience of chanting in the stadium and watching the team just off and on. But I would much rather be in the stadium.
And I know this is a topic near and dear to your heart, Carmelo Anthony. If you were Carmelo, where would you be next season?
if I were Carmelo Anthony, where would I be next season? I'm going to look into the camera for this one. Carmelo Anthony should probably go to the New York Knicks and stay with the Denver Nuggets for the rest of the year. And that is because the New Jersey Nets...
Did you just sell your soul? I don't know. Did you lose a bet?
Listen.
And I'm going to support the Nets, but you're not supporting the Nets?
Brooke Lopez has
Go to the
regressed
Clippers. You read that?
tremendously. Travis Outlaw is already overpaid. Chris Humphries is the best player in the team right now. The Knicks, I don't think that Carmelo should go to a Knicks team that has lost Wilson Chandler and Gallinari in a trade and a draft pick, but I think that he should go to the Knicks via free agency.
Right.
I mean, I don't know if he'll go for the money. He seems like the kind of guy who, though, has that superstar aspect where more he wants to be the guy.
Yeah.
He's
on
made
the team.
$100 million.
So that's why I think the Nets would be better
made
than
over
going
$100
and
million
sharing the
in
spotlight.
his career.
Going and
saying-
sharing the spotlight with Amari.
I don't know if you guys
I
read-
feel like he's a guy who'd rather, or the Pistons were in it. He could go rebuild the Pistons
Oh my
franchise.
God, are you kidding me? Why does he go to the Bucks? Why is he going to Milwaukee? That's fun. That's a great place to hang out.
The Pistons have a history and a bigger
If you
fan
want,
You know
if
what,
you want
though?
a small
No, no,
market,
no, no.
stay in Denver.
Go to the L.A.
He doesn't want a
Clippers.
small market.
I'm being
Why is he going to the
entirely
Clippers?
serious. He should go to the Clippers.
Blake
That
Griffin
would
is the
be
best player in the league.
incredible. Like I'm just saying, that would be something to watch.
Reviving the
All right,
Clippers. glory
that'll
days.
wrap it up
It's never
for
happened.
this week's edition of Unstoppable. Next week, you'll see Fashion 411 on GWTV, and then stay tuned for Colonial Crossfire, GWTV's newest production. We'll be back in a few weeks for Austin, Andrew. I'm Chris Geissler. We'll see you back next time on Unstoppable, or in the next 3 hours.